Nashville is famous for one thing: country music. But country music isn't even close to its biggest industry. Healthcare is, and it isn't close. Companies headquartered in this single mid-sized southern city manage roughly half of America's for-profit hospitals. The strangest part? Nashville didn't become the corporate capital of American medicine because of doctors, hospitals, or even Tennessee. It happened because of a hole in the ground that formed 450 million years ago. And that same hole is the reason Nashville behaves like no other American city. Most cities are exactly what they appear to be. Detroit was cars. Pittsburgh was steel. Memphis is the river. Vegas is the strip. Nashville is the only major U.S. city where the brand, the economy, the politics, and the geography all point in completely different directions. And once you see why, you can't unsee it. Because to understand Nashville, you have to start with something nobody mentions on the tourist brochures. The city sits at the bottom of a giant bowl. The bowl nobody talks about. Pull up a topographic map of Middle Tennessee and you will see something that does not look like the rest of the South. About 60 miles wide and ringed by a raised plateau called the Highland Rim, the Nashville Basin is a geological amphitheater carved out of limestone. It formed when an ancient dome of rock slowly eroded from the inside out, leaving a sunken floor of rich soil surrounded by higher ground on every side. Most American cities sit on something that points outward: a river flowing to a port, a coastline facing trade routes, a pass through mountains that funnels traffic in one direction. Nashville sits at the bottom of a bowl, and bowls do not point anywhere. They pull inward. Look at how roads, rivers, and old wagon trails behave in this part of Tennessee. They do not radiate out from a hub like spokes on a wheel. They spiral in. Every natural route in the region eventually drains toward the basin floor, the way water finds the lowest point in a valley. For thousands of years before any city existed, this was already a convergence zone, a place where every path through the surrounding hills eventually led to the same low patch of fertile ground. Now here is why that matters. Most American cities grew along linear corridors: a river, a rail line, a coast. And linear geography breeds specialization. When everything in your city is oriented toward one trade route, you eventually pick one industry, get good at it, and bet the entire economy on it. Memphis faces the Mississippi and became a logistics city. Pittsburgh sat on coal and became a steel city. Houston sat on oil and became an oil city. Each one is a city built along a line, and each one became a city built around a single industry. Convergent geography does the opposite. It pulls in everything and refuses to let one thing dominate. That is the structural difference. And it is the reason almost nothing about Nashville makes sense until you account for it. If you like videos that decode why American cities turned out the way they did, the subscribe button helps more than you would think. It is the entire point of this channel. A capital that should have been forgotten. When Tennessee picked Nashville as its permanent state capital in 1843, the decision should have produced another sleepy administrative town like Montgomery or Frankfort. State capitals chosen for political compromise, reasons usually do not become anything more than government towns. A few office buildings, a courthouse, some lobbyists. But Nashville already had something Montgomery did not. The convergent road network of the basin meant every wagon trail in Middle Tennessee already ran through the city before the legislature ever showed up. Cotton, livestock, tobacco, lumber, all of it moved through Nashville because the geography made any other route harder. When the state capital function landed on top of an existing commercial crossroads, the two compounded each other. Government attracted lawyers. Lawyers attracted banks. Banks attracted merchants. Merchants needed warehouses. Warehouses needed rail connections. By the late 1800s, Nashville was already doing something unusual for a southern city. It was diversifying, not because anyone planned it, but because the bowl would not let it specialize. Every industry that arrived found room next to the others, and none of them grew large enough to push the rest out. That pattern, to absorb everything and dominate nothing, is exactly what made Nashville irresistible to a new kind of company 100 years later. The healthcare empire hiding behind the honky-tonks. In 1968, 3 men sat down in Nashville and built something that would quietly reshape American medicine. Dr. Thomas Frist Sr., a respected Nashville physician, his son Thomas Frist Jr., and Jack Massey, the businessman who had already turned Kentucky Fried Chicken into a national franchise empire, founded Hospital Corporation of America, HCA, the first major for-profit hospital chain in the country. Why Nashville? Not Atlanta, which was bigger. Not Dallas, which had more capital. Not Chicago, which had Northwestern and the University of Chicago. The reasons were quietly geographic. Nashville sits within a 2-hour flight of nearly every major city in the eastern United States, which is useful when you are running hospitals across multiple states. Vanderbilt's medical school provided a steady pipeline of doctors and administrators. Tennessee taxes were low, and the city's commercial culture, shaped by a century of absorbing whatever industry walked in the door, had no establishment trying to keep newcomers out. HCA exploded. Within a decade, it was managing hospitals from Florida to California, and then something even stranger happened. The company started shedding executives the way an old tree drops seeds. Former HCA managers founded their own healthcare companies, staffing firms, billing companies, hospital management groups, insurance startups, and medical real estate trusts, and they all stayed in Nashville. Why move when the entire ecosystem was already there? By some counts, more than 500 healthcare companies are now headquartered in Greater Nashville. The cluster generates tens of billions of dollars a year and employs hundreds of thousands of people across the region. Hospitals from Anchorage to Miami are managed, staffed, billed, supplied, or financed by companies whose corporate offices sit within a 30-minute drive of downtown Nashville. Here is the contradiction made flesh. The corporate command center of American for-profit medicine sits 2 miles from honky-tonks selling $4 Pabst Blue Ribbon beers to bachelorette parties wearing matching cowboy hats. Tourists walk past glass towers full of healthcare executives and assume they are looking at insurance companies or banks. They have no idea they are standing in the middle of one of the most concentrated industry clusters in the country, and almost nobody outside the industry knows it exists. Music Row is the cover story. So if healthcare is the real engine, why does the entire world know Nashville for music? The answer is one of the most successful branding accidents in American history. In the 1920s, a Nashville radio station started broadcasting a barn dance program that eventually became the Grand Ole Opry. The station's signal was powerful enough to reach across most of the eastern United States at night, and for millions of rural listeners, the Opry became the soundtrack of Saturday evenings. Country music and Nashville fused in the public imagination decades before the city had a real recording industry. Then in the 1950s and the 1960s, the recording industry caught up with the brand. Producers, songwriters, and labels consolidated along a few blocks southwest of downtown that became known as Music Row. The studios were cheap. The musicians were already there. The infrastructure built itself. But here's the thing the brand obscures. Music has never been the largest industry in Nashville, not in the 1960s and not now. The Opry made Nashville famous, and country music gave the city an export identity strong enough to dominate every postcard. Meanwhile, the actual economy underneath, government, banking, insurance, publishing, healthcare, manufacturing, and education, kept quietly diversifying. The music industry became the brand layer sitting on top of an industrial base most people never see. Other cities are what they appear to be. Nashville is not. And that mismatch between brand and base is itself a Nashville-specific phenomenon. The contradictions nobody tries to reconcile. Once you see the brand versus base mismatch, every other Nashville contradiction snaps into focus. This is a Bible Belt city that became America's bachelorette party capital. A deep red state with a deep blue urban core. A country music capital with one of the fastest growing immigrant populations in the South. Kurdish, Somali, Latino, and Vietnamese communities have reshaped entire neighborhoods over the last 2 decades. The largest Kurdish community in the United States lives in a neighborhood locals call Little Kurdistan, sitting a few miles from the Grand Ole Opry. It's an old South geography hosting New South capital, a city of glass towers built on top of a city of 2-story brick, a government town, a college town, a tourist town, a healthcare town, and a music town, all stacked on the same square mile of basin floor. Most cities would experience this as an identity crisis. Nashville experiences it as a Tuesday. The bowl absorbed every wave of new arrivals the way it once absorbed wagon trails, and none of them displaced what came before. They just got added to the pile. Why Nashville can't be killed? Here's why this matters far beyond Nashville being weird. Every other major American city that lost its dominant industry collapsed with it. Detroit, when the auto plants closed. Pittsburgh, when the steel mills shut down. Cleveland, when manufacturing left. Buffalo, when the shipping routes shifted. Each of those cities spent decades trying to recover from the day their one big industry walked out the door. Nashville has no equivalent risk. Because the basin forced the city to absorb everything instead of specializing in one thing, there is no single industry that can collapse and take the city down with it. If healthcare hit a downturn tomorrow, music, government, education, banking, manufacturing, and tourism would still be there. If country music suddenly went out of fashion, the hospitals would not notice. Urban planners have spent decades trying to engineer this kind of resilience on purpose. They run conferences about it. They write white papers. They call it economic diversification, and they treat it as the holy grail of city planning. Nashville got it for free, 450 million years before anyone thought to want it. It is not just different. It is structurally anti-fragile in a way most American cities can only dream about. The same convergent geography that built the city also gave it the one trait American urban history has shown matters most over the long run: the ability to survive when your main industry dies. The trap closing around its own success. But here is where the story turns. Nashville is now growing faster than almost any peer city in the country. Tens of thousands of people move to Greater Nashville every year, drawn by the same combination of jobs, taxes, weather, and culture that built the boom in the first place. Cranes dot the skyline. Neighborhoods that were half empty 15 years ago now command rents that would shock a Chicagoan. And the same basin that built the diversified economy is the thing that physically cannot expand. Atlanta sprawls in every direction across hundreds of miles of flat Piedmont. Dallas eats prairie. Houston swallows whatever is next to it. Nashville is ringed by the Highland Rim, a literal geological wall on every side. The city can densify, but it cannot sprawl the way its peer cities do, because the geography that built it is also the geography that boxes it in. The result is a slow squeeze. Housing prices climb faster than wages. Traffic on the few highway corridors that punch through the rim becomes brutal. The neighborhoods that gave Nashville its character, the diners, the dive bars, the musician apartments, the Kurdish grocery stores, keep getting priced out by what comes next. And it is not just a real estate problem. It is an identity problem. Nashville's whole pattern depends on absorbing diverse outside influence into a confined space. When the space fills up, the absorption stops. The contradiction city stops being able to hold its contradictions. The convergence advantage starts becoming a convergence trap. The open question nobody in Nashville has answered yet is whether the city becomes Atlanta with a music museum bolted on, or whether it becomes something genuinely new. The bowl that built the city might also be the thing that finally limits it. What the land decided. Zoom back out. Every American city tells one story about itself. Detroit was cars, Pittsburgh was steel. Memphis is the river. Vegas is the strip. They are what they appear to be, and when their story breaks, they break with it. Nashville is the only major U.S. city where the brand, the economy, the politics, and the geography all point in completely different directions. That is not a marketing failure or an accident of history. It is the predictable result of building a city at the bottom of a 450 million-year-old bowl that pulls everything inward and refuses to let anything dominate. The land decided. The bowl came first. Every wagon trail, every railroad, every state capital decision, every recording studio, every hospital corporation, every bachelorette party stumbling down Broadway at midnight, all of it landed on top of a piece of geography that was already shaping outcomes long before humans showed up to take credit. Most cities pretend to be one thing while quietly being many. Nashville pretends to be one thing, country music while openly being everything else, and somehow gets away with it. Because the geology underneath it has been doing the same trick since before there were continents in their current shape. Every other American city is one thing pretending to be many. Nashville is many things pretending to be one.